Good morning. Today is November the 20th, 2025. It is about 10:32 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. For the record, this is Yahweh Elohim, Yahuwah, Yahweh, Adonai, Hashem. He who comes from heaven is present upon the earth. We're going to go over today some general history, actually. We're going to cover Palestinians. We're going to cover Israelis, also Israelites, and the all-encompassing Rome. We're also going to be going through some parts where John on Patmos is writing, and what he's writing in Patmos is actually not prophecy of future. It was historical allegory for what was happening in those times. So we're going to begin, and obviously the consort's on her meeting, so try not to be distracted and get onto it today. So let's start off here. Let me pull up a general map and surrounding areas. So Israel is surrounded by Jordan to its east, Egypt to its southwest, and then directly north is Syria. And Israel, before it was settled, and this is all BC, so Israel was settled by Abraham. I want to say it was something to the tune of like 1500 BC. Let's see. Obviously, before it was Canaan. So I'll just read you kind of the historical context, and I say this all the time, guys. I use all the tools that you have available. I never do something that is a fugazi, meaning it's like, oh, well, God just said it, so it must be true. Yes, but I try to give you the validation through all the tools that your current modern world present and have to your availability. So Abraham settled in Canaan, which is associated with the modern state of Israel. The settlement is a significant event in biblical history, marking the beginning of the covenant between Yahweh and Abraham, and I'm Yahweh, between me and Abraham, as well as the establishment of the nation of Israel. And remember, before Israel his name was changed, Jacob, who is Jacob, who is also my fleshly son, but Jacob as the inheritor of Israel. I changed his name. I do this. This is a thing I do, right? And what does that do? When I change someone's name, that is to signify that they are no longer who they used to be. Okay? So, moving on. The journey from Haran to Canaan began under Yahweh's command. So again, if I'm just a fugazi of a spirit, if I'm just the wind, right, then how am I able to command anything? Again, Abraham was my friend. Abraham saw me in the flesh as you are all seeing me in the flesh. So Abraham's actions set the stage for the unfolding of Yahweh's promises to his descendants. So that we're going to try to get an actual... Oh, I was close. Okay, so 1,484 years BC, and that does not mean before Yeshua. Again, I've said this. This is actually... We're going to cover Rome, and Rome, when the Caesar pronounced himself to be God, he changed the calendar. So when Rome went from a republic to essentially a dictatorship, right? A one ruling power. We'll get into the Roman architecture here shortly. But I'm saying all roads lead to Rome. And if you do kind of put on the eyeglasses that the Arabs, or the modern day Palestinians and the Arabs, all of them have really become Rome's bulldogs. So they're doing the bidding for Rome whether they know it or not. So when I tell you that Rome is thy enemy, folks, I'm not like making that up. I mean, I don't make anything up, but for teaching purposes. So we're going to go into starting point. The term Palestinians, as understood today, does not appear in the Bible. However, the ancient Philistines who lived in the region are associated with modern concepts of Palestinians. In historical context, the term Palestinian is derived from the ancient Greek term Philistines, who were a people living in the coastal regions of what is now modern-day Israel and Gaza. The Philistines are mentioned numerous times in the Old Testament, primarily as adversaries of the Israelites. And remember, the Israelites are made up of 12 tribes, and some are light-skinned, some are dark-skinned, so the Israelites are, in a way, in my eyes, kind of taking the best people of the entire area, breaking them out of the Egyptian slavery, and then bringing them to sovereignty into the land of Israel. That's why it's hugely important for that land, specifically Israel, and all of Israel, not pieces of Israel, are to become sovereign and made habitable for me and the Holy Family. So again, the Philistines are mentioned numerous times in the Old Testament, primarily as adversaries of the Israelites. They are known for their conflicts with the Israelites, including the famous battle between David and Goliath. And for my new studiers, David was a little boy when he actually took out Goliath. So before David ever came to prominence or glory. Modern Palestinians are primarily the Arab population living in the region of Palestine, which includes parts of Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. They are not directly descended from the ancient Philistines, but the term Palestinian has evolved over time to refer to the non-Jewish, Arabic-speaking residents of the area. The modern Palestinian identity has been shaped by a complex history of migration, cultural influences, and political changes. So, Palestinians, shaped by complex history of migration, meaning that when Rome would come to an occupate, when Rome would come and when Rome would come and set up their occupation, right, and they would drive a lot of them out, kill a lot of them, or the ones that decided to integrate into Rome's authority and procedure were cultural influences and, of course, political changes. While the Bible does not specifically mention modern Palestinians, it does reference various peoples and tribes that inhabited the region, including Canaanites, the Philistines, and the Philistines were often portrayed negatively in biblical context, primarily as the enemies of the Israelites. Modern understanding of Palestinians encompass a broader and more diverse population that includes historical and cultural influences. So, in short, what that's telling us is that there is actually no deal between me and this fictitious Palestinian people. That is a term that was given to them, to general Arabs settling in the Syrian desert, that Rome was calling them, because Rome didn't look at things carefully and concisely and conspicuously. They would brandish an entire area. Rome is seizing millions of acres of land at a time. So anytime people had a religious preference or a cultural belief, Rome didn't care. So the original home of the Arabs is traditionally believed to be the Syrian desert, which includes parts of the Arabian Peninsula. This region is considered the homeland of the earliest known Arab groups, as recorded in historical texts from the mid-9th century, before Caesar called himself God, right? Which is also found in Revelation and John of Patmos, talking about the current times. So Revelation does have some general tones of what happens in the end, but just like the TV show that I've been giving you a preview of, Dark, right? It's a wonderful TV show, but it has the very basic principles of the beginning is the end and the end is the beginning. So when you're looking at Revelation, do not try to pull direct prophecy. It's not intended to be prophetic. It's intended to illustrate what was happening at the time, which was around 70 years after Caesar proclaimed himself to be God. So moving on, The region is considered to be the homeland of the earliest known Arab groups, as recorded in historical texts from the mid-9th century BCE. The term Arab originally referred to various nomadic and settled tribes in the area, and the concept of Arab identity has evolved over time, influenced again by historical migrations and the spread of Islam. And we'll go down to our next talking point. Alright, so there's a lot of information. I'm going to try to, not speed read, but I'm going to try to really capture the most important parts. So the history of the Arabs, again, is recorded to have begun in the mid-9th century BCE, corresponding with the earliest known attestation of Old Arabic. Tradition in the Abrahamic religions holds that Arabs are the descendants of Ishmael, who was the son of a Hebrew patriarch, Abraham, and his Egyptian concubine, Hagar. The Syrian desert, which includes an extension of the Arabian Peninsula, is the home of the first attested Arab group, as well as other defined Arab groups that spread in the land that has existed for millennia. Before the expansion of the Rashidun Caliphate, 632 to 661, during the early Muslim conquest, pause, because the Muslim conquest began 601 years after Rome sacked Jerusalem, 600 years after Yeshua died. Now, to give you a reference in history, 600 years ago from now would have been so to give you an idea, that would have been November the 16th, 1425, guys. 1425. The 1400s was the Renaissance. That's how long that... So, when any type of Palestinian or even Arab is trying to claim it to my land, guys, their Muslim conquest didn't even really get going until 600 years after Yeshua, which the equivalent of time for modern man would be going from today, 600 years ago, would be back in the Renaissance. That's a long, long time. Alright, moving on. So, the Umayyad Caliphate and the Abbasid Caliphate, these Arab dynasties ruled some of the largest land empires in history, reaching southern France. So again, every territory that Rome originally conquered, they had essentially began to lose their grip, right? Caesar, by Julius Caesar, began to lose the grip, and then they began to break out, into their own. So fast forward, Rome essentially is using the Muslim Brotherhood to reconquer land. And every area that they're trying to infiltrate, so again, France is having a massive surge in Islamic Muslim jihad. So again, reaching southern France, in the west, China, and in the east, Anatolia, in the north, Sudan in the south. Again, Sudan, so Sudan in Africa is having these massive massacres. Guys, this is all spiritual that is happening with the 3D printer. This is literally wicked and evil at its definition. This is what demons are and do to their core. This is their purpose. If you talk about lions and their purpose is devouring the weak, this is what the Muslim Brotherhood is all about. This is their creed. This is their doctrine. This is who they are. They were bred, created, and they are the bitches on Rome's short leash. Meanwhile, Rome gets to pontiff around, which is a literal word and a literal person. They get to pontiff around playing nice guy when in reality, historically speaking, and now, they are leveraging the Muslim Brotherhood against true Christians who believe in Yeshua, who believe in the Old Testament, and above all else, who have one Elohim. That Elohim is me, Yahweh Elohim, Yahuwah, Yahweh, Adonai, Hashem, Yod-Heh, Wad-Heh. Not Jehovah. I hate that damn name. Anyway, alright, Sudan in the south. 1517, the Mamluk Sultani of Cairo, Egypt, as I've said in previous videos, was conquered by the Ottoman Empire, which went on to rule most of the Arab world until World War I, after which it was defeated and dissolved. So guys, we're literally, I'm hitting every hot plate around the world right now, because I told you that Cairo So here was actually a good parable I was going to do. I was laying in bed last night, and I've said this, I don't really sleep, but I honestly, my mind is on every one of these issues directly, and then I try to see what I can do in the spirit that's not going to totally upend everybody. So I try to move as few pieces on the chessboard as possible. But if you remember the movie Aladdin, like the Disney movie, so in the Disney movie, you had the good sultan, right? His daughter's Jasmine. Jasmine has the tiger. Jasmine falls in love with Aladdin, and like all things are good, right? Well, the point of Aladdin, where there's an evil, nefarious guy in the movie called Jafar, and Jafar directly represents the jihadist Muslim type of attitude and the character. So for my millennials out there, my Gen Zers out there, my Gen Alphas out there, if we're talking about Disney movies, every time you're trying to support Palestine, you might as well be saying, if we're watching the Disney movie, you're saying, go Jafar. Jafar, slay the Sultan, imprison the princess, slaughter Aladdin, and raise up your demon army with a wicked genie. Right? Instead of having the good genie who was Robin Williams, right? He's good. That in this parable would represent me as Yahweh. I'm the good genie. I don't do anything to harm people, but I do things to prevent larger harm to people. Right? Versus the bad genie who wants power and he wants all these things that are not naturally his, but they are actually naturally mine. But I have the wisdom and the understanding to use them in beneficial ways for my people, my creation, and myself. Versus the wicked genie, who has his sights on conquering the world through Islamic infiltration. So when the United States is grabbing Jafar by the hand and feeding them and introducing Jafar to the world, like, they become the bad guys themselves by permission. We'll continue, or this video is going to be 3 hours long. Okay. So we got southern France, China, Anatolia, Sudan. Real much the world. Alright, and then after World War I, it was defeated and dissolved, and its territories partitioned, forming the modern Arab states. Following the adoption of the Alexandria Protocols in 1944, the Arab League was founded on 22 of March 1945. The Charter of the Arab League endorsed the principle of the Arab homeland while respecting the individual sovereignty of its member states. Let's drill down real quick and take a look. Pan-Arabism and is a pan-nationalist ideology that espouses the unification of all Arab people in a single nation state consisting of all Arab countries of West Asia, North Africa, Atlantic Ocean, the Arabian Sea, which is referred to as the Arabian world. It is closely connected to Arab nationalism, which asserts the view that Arabs constitute a single nation, meaning that if there is one Arab in power anywhere, such as Zohran Mamdani, the Arabs consider that a win in their religious doctrine. Now they will be coming to conquer the land and the people. In the future, after we're done with the Antichrist and we're done with all these antics, potentially after he passes away, we're going to be able to make some serious moves in a righteous, God-fearing way as a family that is going to be beneficial to all people. But the idea that any and all Muslims step foot on a piece of land and their doctrine says that that was given to them by Allah and that Muhammad blesses them and now they're in a holy war. Guys, that's not true. That's false. That's fictitious. That's demonic religion. That is absolutely nefarious, and it will not stand. It will not stand. And the thing is, right, if I have people that are claiming to be Christians or claiming to be Jews or claiming to be Israelites, but yet they have a non-existent knowledge of history in general, you see what I mean? Then even you guys are blindly believing in a faith that you should have historical understanding, because if you have these things, you will know me. The more knowledge you have of me, Elohim, the more knowledge you're going to have of the truth of the world that you live in. And then you'll be able to make the connections and say, damn, guys, like, we have all been not only led astray, but we have all been led into mental imprisonment, which soon follows, or which physical imprisonment soon follows after these people have taken land. So again, it originated in the late 19th century, which for my people, that is the 1800s, among the Arab regions in the Ottoman Empire, and its popularity reached its height during the peak of Nasserism and Baathism. So Nasserism, right? Think of their leader in Tehran, not Nasrallah, but Khomeini. Anyway. In the 50s and the 60s, advocates of Pan-Arabianism have often espoused Arab socialist principles and strongly opposed political involvement of the Western world. It has sought to empower Arab states against outside forces by forming alliances known as the Arab League that employs multiple and singular militant units throughout the entire world to deliver essentially jihadist messages. Alright, I'm trying to scan real quick. Alright, and let me back out. I lost my original spot. Okay. So, in the bloodline, and we're going back big time, so we're going back like 7,000 years before, I mean, just to say like 6,000 BC, right? I don't like saying before Christ, because that's actually not what it means, and that's not true. It's before Rome conquered Jerusalem, and in Rome's mind, they were like, we just conquered like Yahweh's direct city-state. So that's when the Caesar proclaimed himself as God, and then the actual Roman Republic as a democratic society was dismantled, and then the first true rise of a sole leader dictator came to prominence. So again, at any point would a Caesar even feel that he has the necessity or the desire to be a co-ruler with me, the one true God? Or would instead he feel that now I've done sack Jerusalem, now I've imprisoned their people, now I'm going to give them the ideology of things to worship and how to do it from Rome. They're no longer Hebrews, they're no longer Israelites, they're no longer anything, they're going to be Roman Muppets. So most religions today still have the ickiness of being Roman puppets. Moving on. The prehistoric Arabia, the Neolithic period of prehistoric Arabia, the Bedouins. Now the Bedouins still exist today. The Bedouins engaged in nomadic herding, agriculture, and sometimes fishing in the Syrian steppe from at least 6,000 BCE by about 850 BCE. A complex network of settlements and camps were established. The earliest Arab tribes emerged from the Bedouins. Let's do a quick jump over and let's do a quick history on the Bedouins. The Bedouin people, originally nomadic pastoralists of the Arabian Peninsula, have a rich history that dates back thousands of years. They are known for their camel herding lifestyle and have played significant roles in history of the Middle East. Origins: Bedouins originated in the Syria desert and the Arabian desert, So I want to make this very clear. Palestinians, whatever you call yourselves, any Arabs, none of you have any claim nor natural claim to my land. Your only in any natural claim would be to Syria. Go move to Syria. Stop dividing up Israel. I will interject here with a so sweareth I, saith Yahweh Elohim, Yahuwah, that if this continues, if the Donald Trumps of the world and the Crown Princes and the Mahdi and all these people are still continuing to be insistent on splitting my land, Israel is to be one land under me, Yahweh, with my people, all who choose to come and worship, honor, and bring offerings to my temple when it's erected. And once the enemies are cleared from my land, I want to come home. I want to bring the heavenly family home. I want to bring the heavenly family home before we have a temple. I'm ready to get with my people. I am excited, and I want my people to be excited. Like, true to my heart and to my core. And that's never going to happen when we're debating that Gaza is going to become a Palestinian state if they're good boys and girls. That's never going to happen, and I don't want that. That is not my desire. That is not what I said. That is not what I've given. I've given that land to Israel, who was Jacob. Not Israel. I mean, not the Arabs. Why? What's what I mean? The Arabs, you have enough. You have enough. It is wicked and evil in itself to be so selfish and so stubborn and so self-centered that you will work your hands to murder to capture my tiny piece of land. Was it not enough for me to be humble enough and say, that is my tiny little piece of land? Now you bunch of tyrants and psychopaths, leave it the fuck alone. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get mad. I apologize. I'm gonna take 5. This is not meant to be an anger video. It's teaching. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, like I said, I am not trying to get upset, and I'm trying to watch the potty words, truly. Because, guys, there's nothing more important to me than making this work. Like, how it really feels is I really, really, really don't want to, like, tear the whole house down and build it again. But, like I said, if this is kind of the chord that's being struck with the world right now, then that's what I'm going to have to do. But damn it, I'm not going to go down without swinging. I'm not going to go down without fighting. I'm not going to go down. I mean, I'm not going down, period. But I mean, I'm not going to just torch the place out of wrath and anger because we're not there yet. Because I believe in my heart of hearts, in my most wrathful moments, ascending upstairs and literally putting my hand on the button, ready to just be done with this. My heart of hearts still has that little bit of light in it that says there are some people that are in this world that still don't know about me, and once they find out about me, they're going to be so excited, so ecstatic, so ready to help me bring my plans to fruition. Like Yeshrael Fisher, like I am, my heart beats for this guy. Like, he has so much love for his people. He has so much love and admiration for me, and whether or not it's in the person of me or if it's in just my spirit, I won't go there. But I know that he is exactly what I would call a son of me, Yahweh, because he is out there doing everything he can to spread the message, to teach people. He's out there with heart, and you know, he has no problem being quick-witted against people that are ignorant, like the Australians or like the French, like these worldly people that think they know anything about me, my people, in my land. And he is out there wielding the sword of truth. He is wielding the sword of righteousness, and he really is. Like, what a set-apart, amazing individual. You know, he's not hiding underground doing Bible studies that have been around for 3,500 years. Granted, that's still beneficial. But for the time and the season that we're in, I need mobilization. If I have a people out there, as I told Abraham, then bring me 50 righteous. If there's not 50, bring me 40. If there's not 40, bring me 30. But damn it, Abraham, bring me something. And Yashriel Fisher is doing that. Back on track. Disturbing Cammy. She gets all like, oh no. Alright. So again, the origination of the Palestinians originated from the Bedouin people, and they were nomadic. So they never had an Elohim that settled a land for them, right? As the wild humans, as the Arabs are wild humans, they do as they please, they do as their flesh desires, and they create and interpret their own devil's doctrine. So if you want to say there's any supernatural component to the Palestinians or the Arab nations at all, it is the literal counterpart, the force that is called Hasatan is a literal deity, an entity that I separated from him, right? As the one closest to me, the highest ranking of my angels at one time, who had the most authority, the most dominion, he himself fell like lightning onto the earth, and he did not agree with virtually anything that I have put in place. He felt and still feels that his trajectory is what's best for humanity. That is the Sharia law stuff of the world, not the law of Moses that I, as Yahweh, gave. Anyway, alright, I'm trying not to get off track. Okay. And historical significance. The Bedouins have been involved in trade and warfare. They would raid trade caravans and villages at the margins of settled areas. So what that means is, when we were talking about several videos ago about how my people would come to my temple and get a map. The map would be laid out with the proper altars to pay your honor, your worship, your respect to me and Asherah. These Bedouins, which now they're called Palestinians, the Arab people that have never been settled, right? They were attacking caravans and trade routes. They've never wanted to work for a living, so they try to pry off of successful settlements, and then once they've ran out the good people, they settle it and turn it into a shithole. Nothing has changed in 10,000 years. They've done the same thing to Gaza, right? Because let's say that if things worked out where 70, 80 years ago, if the already two-state solution, the Gaza solution, they were given a settlement, they didn't settle anything. They made it a stop post for war against the Israelites. They just said, hey, great, we hate you, now we're neighbors, now it'll be less gas for us to come and attack you. Like, this is not brain science, but to have a retarded president like America does, and unfortunately, Netanyahu, I understand the predicament you're in. I'm very pissed off at the ultimatum that President Trump gave you, that if you were to make that strike, he said verbatim to Benjamin Netanyahu, I will make sure that the Palestinians stay in Israel. And then I told Benjamin Netanyahu, you need to proceed with that strike. He obeyed me, and Trump put him in a quid pro quo. That has been written down and recorded by heaven. I sweareth, saith Yahweh Elohim, thy divine wrath will be dispensed accordingly. Back on track. Alright, I'm done with the Bedouins. I'm going back to... Alright, so I think that's getting a little too deep in the history part, so I'll cut that off there. And then again, the Syrian desert is... Let me blow this up so I can see here. I mean, my eyes are perfect, but... No. Okay, either way. So the Syrian desert encapsulates the mid to southern Syria, all the way over into western, almost all of western Iraq to the middle, which covers Tehran, all the way down again to the Saudi Arabia Peninsula, up through Jordan. But it does not touch Israel. So Gaza people, Palestinian people, get out of my land. So, moving on. So the 7th century is the period from 601 through 700 AD, and again after Rome's occupation of Jerusalem and the calendar change, in accordance with the Julian calendar, Julius Caesar, Julian calendar of the Christian era. The spread of Islam and the Muslim conquest began with the unification of Arabia, and by the Islamic prophet Muhammad starting in 622. So, again, the Muslim religion began 600 years after Yeshua, which is the equivalent of 1488 today, if you went back to the Renaissance era. So that's how far apart we're talking here. And this Muhammad guy did nothing. Like, he was probably the only one literate of the time who could read Hebrew, and he basically designed and invented a counter religion to Christianity and to Judaism. Honestly, because why, right? All Muslims and Islamics are really just, they exist by Hasatan to be a pain in my ass, and by virtue, a pain in all of my people's asses. By killing my people. Like, how am I ever going to have peace if they're still alive? That's up to them, because I have no problem leaving them alone. They go back to the Syrian desert where they belong, and leave my people alone indefinitely. This is not hard. So, the territories that Rome captured throughout time. The Roman Empire's territorial conquests were vast and varied, encompassing regions across Europe. Europe is on fire with Muslim Islamic jihad. North Africa, the battles of Sudan, the battles in Egypt, all of these things, again, before the Islamic conquests, and before most of these things, the pharaohs were worshipped as deities in some ways, and then before them they were worshipping Ra, they were worshipping Marduk, they were worshipping Isis, and other than them basically poaching my people that were caught off guard and enslaving them, they never went to attack anything though, which is a difference. So the Roman Empire's territorial conquests were vast, varied, encompassing regions across Europe, North Africa, the Middle East. Italy, obviously, was Rome's expansion, and the Etruscan city of Veii in 396 before Yeshua, or before Rome's remarking of the calendar. Mediterranean islands, Carthage, North Africa. The conquest of North Africa was a significant achievement, with Rome establishing control over the region and its inhabitants. Uh-oh, I feel an earthquake. There you go. There's your earthquake. Alright. Britain and Europe. Roman legions marched into Britain and other parts of Europe, establishing Roman rule and influence. The Middle East. Rome's expansion into the Middle East includes territories as Jerusalem and parts of the Levant. Eastern Europe. The Roman Empire controlled parts of modern-day Germany, Austria, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Turkey, the Balkans. Guys, every one of these things I'm naming have been, currently in modern day, are being overran by Islamic jihad. This is a massive curse to any land, and I'll be damned if the same cursed people are going to remain in my land. I will never bless my land so long as there is Islamic jihad. That Islamic jihad is a choice. It is an idealization. It is a wicked and evil disease that I have cursed greatly. Any and all people who follow, who worship, who respect, who honor, who give glory, who who bargain with, who try to give land to, who try to give money to, who try to trample my people, the Jews or the Israelites, underfoot because of radical Islamic jihad or Muslims in general, saith I, Yahweh Elohim, I put a deathly curse, a massive curse upon them, their children, their people, their land. May they suffer everything, including death, without a rebirth, without heaven. There is no 70 virgins in heaven for nobody. There is not 70 virgins in the real heaven that is mine. There is your significant other who you were designed to be with. That is in heaven, one and one only. Because you will be doing as the angels do, and as the Elohim do. Well, the angels don't have relations like that, but as the Elohim do. Alright, so establishing that Rome's a pain in the ass, and that Israel is still mine. Yeah, because the West Bank, Hebron, like all these guys, none of that, not Gaza, not the West Bank, that is all Israel. That is all mine. That is all Yahweh Elohim, Yahuwah, who is I, that is my land. I want, you know what I want? I want to raise up a personal private military all around the world to have hundreds of thousands of Israelites and Jews coming into Israel and to run out Muslim Islamic jihad, to overwhelm them by the numbers that they never thought existed. Because so long as the modern world thinks that the Palestinians have the numbers versus the Jews, because that's what it's about, right? Just like Trump, right? He's all about who has the most money, who's going to pay me that fucking money. I hate that man. Oh, I hate that man. I curse that man too. Be damned if I live in that country. He has done nothing for the Christian faith, nothing for the Jewish faith, and sure as hell hasn't done anything for the actual God who's about me. Moving on. Abraham settled the land of Canaan, also known as the Promised Land, because I, as Yahweh Elohim Yahuwah, the angel of the Lord, I gave that to Abraham. 1,484 years BC, before Rome occupied Jerusalem. And the timeline of events in the Bible, which includes the exodus from Ur of the Chaldeans and the establishment of the covenant between Abraham and Yahweh. So, moving in a little deeper into this, starting with the Exodus date of around 1524 BC, adding 40 years to it gives us the year that Israel entered the Promised Land about 1484 BC. Subtracting 400 years from the entrance to the Promised Land in 1484 BC, we get a date when the covenant between Abraham and Yahweh was established, being in 1884 BC. Using the base date of the Exodus, we can subtract 80 years for Moses, 2 years for the Pharaoh, who did not know Joseph, giving us the date for Joseph's death as around 1606 BC. Subtracting 110 years for Joseph's life, found in Genesis 50, chapter 50, verse 22, gives us Joseph's birthday as 1716 BCE. BCE. Joseph's father, who is Jacob is Israel. At the time, Joseph was born 91 years old, so by subtracting 91 years, Jacob's birth year was 1807 BC. Genesis chapter 25, verse 26 informs us that Isaac was 60 years old at Jacob's birth, so Isaac's birth year was 1867. Abraham's birth can be found in Genesis chapter 21, verse 5. Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born. Thus gives Abraham a birth date of 1967 BC. Abraham left Ur at 13 years old, and 1954 BC, found by subtracting 430 years from the Exodus date, which was 1524 BC, found in Exodus chapter 12, verse 41. In no way, in no shape, in no form, in no historical context, and not even an imaginative historical context, do the Arabs or the Palestinians or the Philistines or the Greeks or the Romans or the Turkish or fucking anybody are to be settled in my land. My land. This would be a whole different conversation if, say, my land was Iran and I had like millions and millions of square miles of just open land. Plenty of room to settle. Plenty of room for eternity for people. If I had that land, and let's say that I was the asshole like the Muslims, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna go over here and start picking fights with tiny little Palestine because I'm a dick and I want to take their land too. Because, well, that's what we do, right? We're a wicked and evil people, and hey, we have wicked and evil rulers. We even have wicked and evil people in America. So guess what? Like, it's game on, as the modern people would say. Bet. Right? It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Truly is disgusting. Alright, so I've expanded upon that. Anyway. Yeah, in a very short, like, little preview, right? The history of Israel starts with Yahweh's dealings with Abraham and the promises that Yahweh made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yahweh gave the law to Israel through Moses and warned the Hebrew Israelites that if they disobeyed him, he would scatter them throughout the earth. That has happened in history. Yes, it has. This goes back to interfamily politics. So this is where you got to kind of change hats. So when I, as the father, am talking very broadly against the world, right? I keep my people tightly tucked in my heart because the world is a nefarious, evil shitbag. When we take off that hat and put on the family inner workings, it comes down to, okay, sons, when I said stop with the infatuation of wanting to exalt a man on the throne so you can worship him, because I am your Elohim and I am real and I do come on planet Earth incarnate at times. And I am to be your only king. And in my absence, which at this point going forward will be never, ever, 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 that in my stead, I would have an anointed one to lead and to guide and to interpret Jewish law and to do all these things. But when the Jews and the Israelites continue to forsake me, as you do today, all this bad shit happens to you because you're trying to make deals with people like PT. PT at one point should and was intended to be your best buddy. He has shaken off his salvation. He has kicked my name in the dirt, and he has essentially locked me down online. And you know what? I'm going to ensure that he will be my selected few that will never see the light of day again. That's a fact. Because for someone to have the ability and the strings and the power to be a helper of God, to be a promoter of God, to be one so privy to the direct words in which I teach and say, he's infatuated with himself. And unfortunately, he is the exact type of bad example, the bad role model that my Jews and my Israelites and, oh my God, my Christians, you guys are fawning over him when he absolutely is doing all of you a nasty and a disservice by doing deals with the Palestinians. This is a fight of good versus evil, and it's not hard to find out what side you're on. I, as Elohim, do not negotiate with evil. I state, these are the rules, these are the facts, this is the path. If it is deviated from, then you have chose to get off the righteous path that I have put for you. It is called narrow for a reason. There is not margin for mankind to interpret something I say and then go do something different. That's not how this works. So, Alright. Alright. I'm going to take another 5, and then I am going to go into the post-educational commentary, and then we will wrap it for the day. I'm frozen. Okay, there we go. I think we're not frozen. Alright. We're going to wrap it up here. So a couple of notes. The sale of F-35s to the Saudis, again, this is crap. This is deeper than crap. This is terrible. You know, we have the American president who is willing to not only sell the soul of America to the devil for money, but to appease the international community, which the international community is already condemned by me, Yahweh Elohim. Why exactly are we trying to extend olive branches to communities that are already damned and will not stand? They will not stand. So sweareth I, saith the Lord God Almighty, Yahweh Elohim Yahuwah, I'm going to send ravaging fires through capital cities. Mark it as a witness. This is the part in the video where you need to get a pen and a paper. Write it down. I'll give you a minute. Write it down. Go get a paper. No, seriously. Go get a pen and paper and go write it down. Because here's the deal. I'm going to be sending fires, massive fires, through capital cities, major capital cities of the modern world. I'm going to make sure that if I'm not seen on the video, I'm going to be seen and heard the pain that I will inflict upon every nation in this world. Sweareth I, saith Yahweh Elohim. So, next up, Gaza data shows famine claims inflated by the United Nations-backed monitor. Again, this is to my point, right? Then take your asses out of my land and go home. Go to Syria, go to Iran, go to Saudi Arabia. They've got the money, they've got the room, they've got the bed and breakfast for you. Get out of my land. I will make it so inhospitable that not even bacteria wants to survive. If I have to nuke Israel my fucking self just to make sure there's no one there, then I will. Like, I'm getting that mad. And anti-Zionist protesters chant death to the IDF at New York City synagogue. And these protesters are so stupid, they've never done history research, they've never done biblical research. They're taking the diarrhea out of the mouth of Muslim Islamic jihad, and then they're chanting it, because frankly, Islamic organizations, the Muslim Brotherhood, is infiltrating every aspect of American society, brainwashing stupid people, young people, and even normal stupid people. And Americans are mostly lazy, they're ignorant, they're unstudied, they're unlearned, they perish for lack of knowledge, and they have an issue with bandwagon taste buds. They have bandwagon taste buds. And you know what it is? It's bandwagon fever. If Muslims are the wild child, then you can bet that stupid Americans are going to adopt the ideology of Islamic Muslim jihad, despite the murder, despite the words. That's what they're going to do. Because Americans are more interested in being rebels than they're interested in being sovereign or even traditional. And this was a point I forgot to make on yesterday's video. This is the epitome of stupid in America. Me, the daughter, and the wife were watching this show that I do not like, but I watch it for their sake, called The Road. Most all these songs are about cheating on your spouses, reminiscing about ex-lovers, getting drunk, getting high, basically debauchery. American human debauchery. Sin layered upon sin. And when you look out into the crowd, you see a lovely woman and a nice gentleman, and they're snuggling up to each other about a song that talks about how the guy wishes he was with his ex and how his current wife is nothing like his old one, or vice versa, or the woman feels her wild and reckless streak to get out there and be a whore. Like, and these people are so oblivious to what is being said, they're sitting there holding each other. And then they wonder why they're on their third and fourth and fifth marriage, why the guy goes home later to only discover his wife is cheating on him, or vice versa. You know what I mean? You guys are literally singing the songs of the devil and you're doing it happily and proudly. Do you understand that you are producing sin? You're producing sin upon sin, and it's happening through your music and entertainment media. And guess what? Now when you are listening to your bullshit country music, who I condemn, I hate country music, I hate most modern music, period. Like, it's disgusting, it's diseased, it is infuriating that humans are so stupid they don't even realize what they're doing to themselves. You're turning on devilish music and you're being programmed. You are literally being programmed to be numb to sin. So when sin is sitting at the door, waiting to capture you, waiting to devour you like a lion, they're baiting it through music and entertainment. And then only for now the finale, the devil's grand finale, is saying, we're going to take these ignorant people who have already adopted sin. Now we don't need to influence it anymore because now they're wanting it. Now they're screaming at crowds, we want more of this shitty music. We want more music that's going to move our feelings to commit sin against our husbands, our wives, our children, our government, our state, and in any shape or form. And it is embraced. Now the final straw is about to fall. You've elected an Islamic jihadist into the mayor of New York. You've given the Muslims a new land for them to lie and claim that is theirs. And now you're promoting this shit in schools. Now you have Americans chanting death to the IDF, mimicking their father, the devil, and literally demonstrating, promoting that we see you selling stolen land. You understand, you fucking moron. Israel is the Jewish land. Israel is the Israelite land. Israel is not Palestinian land. It is not Arab land. It is not Muhammad's land. That mosque needs to burn. I want to recruit 1 million people behind me to walk through Israel, and we are going to torch everything that is not Jewish, everything that is not Israeli, and we are going to build a wall 40 feet high, despite what the international community says, despite what American presidents say, despite what the one world government says. Israel's going to be sovereign. Its Elohim is sovereign, and I am done with this shit. I do not know how much clearer I can be. This is going to happen. And anybody that stands in my way or our way will not only be cursed, and their entire family will perish through disease, through plague, through accident, through peril, through everything. I, as the Lord God Almighty Yahweh Elohim, in Joshua the Conqueror, the Warrior, the first Messiah, he who does not take no for an answer, I will remove the heads of giants. My temple will be erected, my people will be restored, and safety will be found only in Israel, only where I am at, and only where my people are going to gather. The bullshit stops. And if there are Jews out there trying to mitigate and have contemporary ideals of getting along with the Palestinian statehood, then you can stay the hell out of Israel too. You are one people under one Elohim. That Elohim is me. For better or worse, like me or not. This is the plan. This is the action. This is the outcome. Because the only thing outside of that outcome is me destroying the entire planet. And I really don't want to do that. So we are going to burn that mosque to the ground. We are going to remove these pests from our lands. We are going to recapture every fucking inch of Israel the way it was intended when I gave it to Abraham. That's a fact. That is truth. That is the way. End of story. End of subject. So, now that I've had my rant, I'm going to go take an ibuprofen to get rid of my headache and go do school pickup. Have a good Thursday.